we have new cards, and some of these I think are actually quite interesting. I haven't read them yet, but there are support cards for some for all, I think it's all of the Vailant Smashers archetypes. Literally all of the Vailant Smashers archetypes are getting their first wave of support in Legacy of Destruction. And if we've learned anything about side sets getting support from the OCG in main sets, that's gonna be potentially very interesting. Once again, I haven't read the cards yet, so let's start. We're going we're doing Centur-ion last because it's the most exciting one, I think. I don't know if the cards are the best, but like we'll see. We have Memento Twin Dragon, which I believe is a... Memento is all taking a spin on very, very old cards. I believe this one is meant to be Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, which is cool. Because we have a level 7 Light Thunder Fusion Effect monster with the same stats. So that's probably Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon right there. And then we have... I believe this is the first fusion for Memento, and probably it's the first actual extra deck monster for Mementos. And it's a fusion monster with the corresponding fusion spells. So we got materials, 2 Memento monsters. You can only use the first and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. If this card is fusion summoned, you can destroy Memento in your hand or face-up field. And if you do, add up to 2 Memento monsters with different names from each other from your deck to your hand. That's pretty cool. It can also destroy itself if you want to do that, if you have nothing else to do. Monsters destroyed by battle with your Memento monster are banished. If this fusion summoned card is destroyed, you can special summon a level 6 or lower Memento monster from your graveyard. Okay, that makes destroying itself even better because it immediately replaces itself. So it essentially just searches 2 cards on summon. Pretty much. Because destroying itself is not really a cost when it just floats into something else that you want to. So it just searches 2 different Mementos. That's pretty good. Although, I mean, it's a huge caveat that it is a fusion monster. So you're probably going to have to invest a decent amount of resources into making it. But still not a bad card. Especially if the fusion spell has any sort of tricks up its sleeve to like cheat out the fusion monster for cheaper. You can only use the first and second effect once per turn. During the main phase, fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material, including a Memento. If a monster in your possession was destroyed by card effects this turn, you can also use Mementos in your grave as material by shuffling them into the deck. Okay, I believe that is relatively easy to set up with Mementos because they have multiple stuff that all destroys itself, right? Like it all destroys, they all have effects of destroy another one and then do something, right? It is a quick play too, which makes it better because it can summon Guardian Chimera because it doesn't specify it has to be a Memento fusion. That's pretty good. During your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, destroy 1 monster you control, and if you do, add a Memento spell and trap from your deck to your hand. You can use both effects per turn. That is pretty powerful. And it can search, yeah, you can search another quick play fusion if you want to. Like, you can just banish this, destroy one of your monsters, search another fusion, set that fusion, and on your opponent's turn, it gives you a Guardian Chimera. You also have ways to maybe send it to the graveyard from your deck to do things like that. That's a very powerful card. Once again, the trend continues. The trend continues where these side set archetypes, they just get bangers, dude. They just get banger cards because no matter what, no matter if this makes Memento tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, no matter what, these cards are very, very strong. And even more importantly, they seem like exactly what Memento needed in some ways, because what I'm seeing here is cards that make your lines end on something like this is a good card going second and first, because going second, it's just a quick play. It helps you dodge disruption. It helps you OTK. You can only fuse during the main phase, but still helps you load up the graveyard. Gives you more searches from the graveyard, and then more importantly as well, Memento is a deck that previously didn't have that much that they could set up for going first. And this is another layer of disruption on your opponent's turn, because if you set this up, search another copy of the fusion spell, set it, you can make a Guardian Chimera, which, you know, we know that's a very relevant, it's a very relevant card. Also, you can make, do Mementos have any darks, or is it all lights? Can I make a Dragostapelia? Like, yeah, I can just make a Dragostapelia, right? By just putting two things from the graveyard back into the deck. That's also pretty cool. No, I think those two cards are really, really strong. Those two cards are really, really strong. We're gonna have to wait and see if they make Memento as a whole viable. But the trend of them making custom cards for the side set archetypes continues. That's those cards are pretty good, which makes me a little scared of the Centur-ion cards, but we're gonna read those in a bit. First, we have Valmonica. Make the right choice with Valmonica. We have Celetrice Valmonica, which is a level 4 water spellcaster effect monster, which is, I hope it has a good normal summon effect, because that's what Valmonicas are missing. They literally don't have good normal summon. They set up scales, but they don't really do anything with their normal summon or pendulum summon. You can only use the first and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. If this card is normal or pendulum summoned, you can add a Valmonica card. Yep, okay. Yep. Your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks while you control a monster other than Celetrice Valmonica. If this card is sent to the graveyard and you have 2 Valmonica cards in your pendulum zone, you can add this card to your hand. I mean, that's pretty good. That's like, I want to say once again, exactly what Valmonica needed, because what Valmonica was missing was like monsters that they want to put onto the board. Right, like you have no monsters that you want to actually summon. This is one of them. This works as a normal summon, as a starter, but it can also work if you already have scales. You can also just pendulum summon it. And if you have your pendulum scales set up, it even goes back to the graveyard infinitely. Like, I mean, on your first turn, you're gonna add it back to your hand. Next turn, you can summon it again. All that kind of stuff. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good start. We have Valmonica Invitare, which is you can only activate a card with this card's name once per turn. Apply one of these effects. Once again, special summon a Valmonica from your deck. Also, you cannot activate monster effects on the field for the rest of this turn except Valmonicas. Emergency teleport for Valmonica. However, doesn't trigger this one, because it says normal or pendulum summoned, which probably was on purpose, but still, that makes it worse. If you control a non-pendulum Valmonica, take 2 pendulums with different names from your deck, add one of them to your hand, add the other to your extra deck. Okay, so... Alright. One thing to note is that only the first effect locks you. Only the first effect locks you. The second effect does not. So if you normal summon this one, you can just add this one and use the second effect, because you're now going to control a non-pendulum Valmonica. So you get 1 scale in the scale, like 1 pendulum in the scale and 1 in the extra deck from the 1 normal summon, which isn't terrible either. One thing to note is that this card does not gain you life points or inflict life points, right? Damage to you, so you don't get counters for this one, which I think matters a little bit. But sure. And then we have Valmonica Disharmonia, which is the normal spell. You can only activate a card with this card's name once per turn. Place a resonance counter on a card in your pendulum zone that you can place a resonance counter on, then apply one of these effects. Gain 500 life points. Ooh, hold up. Then you can add one of your banished Valmonicas to your hand, take 500 damage, then you can add a Valmonica from your grave to your hand. Oh, you know what the cool thing about this card is, I think, is that it gives you 2 counters, right? Because it places 1 counter with its own effect, and then it also does the gain life points or take damage thing, so you get multiple counters from this card. This is pretty good for just for that reason, right? Just for that reason, I think that's pretty solid, as well as, I mean, adding cards back from banished or graveyard is always a good addition to decks. That's also solid. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm still struggling to see what the goal with Valmonica ultimately is. Like, when you're playing a Valmonica deck, what are you actually trying to do? Well, I see what the deck is trying to do, but I'm struggling to see how that would be good enough in 2024. But the cards are good. It seems like the kind of deck where a lot of its cards are strong, but it might not have a strong enough end board or whatever. Like, I feel like it could end up being this sort of like hyper consistent strategy that just doesn't do enough though. But we'll see. But those cards, like, and that's what those cards facilitate even more, right? These 3 cards are great for consistency, for starter potential, even for the grind game, right? But none of these cards really make your end board stronger, is what I'm trying to get to, right? Like, these cards are making the deck even more consistent, a lot more potential, and then just like no payoff at the end still. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe people are gonna figure out a way to make it work. Maybe find a good thing to mix with Valmonica, maybe to make it have a good end board, because these cards are all still very, very good for what it's worth for Valmonica. Yeah. All right, now Awaken Further Centur-ion Power. These are scary. I haven't read them yet, but Centur-ion is already the best archetype out of these 3. So we're gonna have to wait and see, or like, well, I mean, we don't have to wait. We're gonna see right now how good these new cards are. All right, we have Centur-ion Gargoyle 2, which is a level 8 Dark Dragon effect monster. You can only use the first, second, and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. You can send a face-up Centur-ion card you control to the graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand. Also, you cannot special summon Centur-ion Gargoyle 2 for the rest of this turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can add it to your hand. During the main phase, if this card is a continuous trap, you can special summon it. Then you can decrease its level by 4. Okay. So, one thing to note about these Centur-ion cards is that I believe all of them include some kind of clause that locks you from special summoning that name for the rest of this turn. That is always the effect that you try to use second, not first, right? Because like, you want to use the summon itself from the spell and trap zone. So what you are meant to do with this card is you're meant to place it into your spell and trap zone first. You are meant to then summon it out, either as a level 4 or 8. Then you're meant to synchro with it. It goes back to your hand. Then you're meant to summon it from your hand, if you want to. Okay. This card is looking all right to me. It's not like... It's not crazy or anything. But my first instinct was that it's not a starter card. However, I feel like that's not what Centur-ion wants anyway. Centur-ion already has a million one-card starters. Like, everything in the Centur-ion deck except for Emmet right now is one-card starters. So I feel like what Centur-ion does want is like extenders, and this is an extender, right? It gives you extenders, it gives you resources back from the graveyard when you synchro with it. This feels like an okay card. My take on Centur-ion is that I actually really like the cards. I really like the deck. The only thing I don't like about it is its end goal. We've talked about this in the past. I think Calamity is not a very healthy card to have your deck revolve around. So I think as long as you can do a 1-card Calamity combo, people have just like no real reason to deviate from that game plan. As long as Calamity exists, you're not really gonna deviate from that. And so I don't know how many quote-unquote extenders you really need in a deck that has a 1-card Calamity combo, right? But they did ban Calamity in the OCG, right? So it's interesting, as soon as Calamity is banned, what happens with Centur-ion, because the 1-card combos in Centur-ion without Calamity are not strong enough anymore. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But in a world without Calamities, I could really see appreciating this kind of card, is what I'm trying to say. Like, as long as Calamity is a thing, I don't know if you need it, quite frankly. But if Calamity doesn't exist, then maybe you want this kind of card. The one thing that I don't like about it is it's not a quick effect. It's not a quick effect to summon itself here, this one. So you can't dodge. That would have been really good. Like, being able to dodge Imperms or Veilers on your Primera, that would have been nice. But you cannot do that, unfortunately. But still not a bad card, I don't think. We have Centur-ion Arc Coella, which is a new level 12 Dark Dragon. Here we go. They're trying to give you a replacement synchro to go into over something like Crimson Dragon to make Calamity happen. We have a level 12 Dark Dragon, materials generic. You can only use the first and third effect once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can add a Centur-ion card from your deck to your hand. Okay. Face-up cards in your spell and trap zone cannot be destroyed by card effects. All right. During the end phase, you can place one of your non-synchro Centur-ion monsters that's banished or in your graveyard face-up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous trap. Okay. This guy is good. This guy is good. It's basically Legacia number 2. Right? It's basically Legacia number 2. Same concept. Level 12 synchro, add a card on summon from deck to your hand. Centur-ion Legacia draws one, this one adds one, specific one. They have a secondary effect which protects parts of your board, and then during the end phase, they place a non-synchro Centur-ion from your grave face up in your spell and trap zone, which is cool. Once again, same thing as before. This is not better than when Calamity was still a thing. However, you can now make like there's a couple things I want to note about this card. This card can be better than Legacia in certain cases, even if you're playing the Calamity version, right? Even if you're playing the Calamity version, instead of drawing a random card, you can just search the counter trap, which would make it so that your Calamity lock is much more consistent and easier to push through your opponent's stuff. Like, you can, instead of drawing a random card, I'm just going to search the counter trap, right? And in the end phase, they both do the same thing. But I think one thing that's even more important than that is the fact that this makes it so your combo does not care about Pot of Prosperity anymore at all. I feel like that is something that I just noticed, that it might be a very underrated part about this card, is that you don't draw with this, right? So that was one of the weirdest things about Centur-ion in the past, where it was the perfect deck to put in Prosperity, but then Legacia, you would have to skip that draw, which just feels bad, right? And so with this guy, I can do the same combo that I would do with Legacia, but I search instead of drawing, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Oh, another note that people are pointing out right now is that it places the Centur-ion from banished or graveyard, so you can't even prevent the Calamity with like Bestials anymore. That's true. That's true. Yeah. And it protects your Centurions from Ghost Ogre as well. The synchro is good. The synchro is good. I think that's a good synchro. I like it. I like it. That's very strong. That is very strong. Yeah, the second effect, honestly, if they wanted to make it completely custom, they should have made it so that your spells and traps can't be destroyed by card effects or targeted, because then you also counter Cosmic Cyclone, but that's asking too much probably. This one's very good. I like this one. And then we have Wake Up Centur-ion, which is a quick play spell card. You can only use the first and second effect each once per turn. If you have a face-up monster card in your spell and trap zone, declare a level of 4 or 8, special summon a Centur-ion token with that level, but it can't be used as fusion or link material. During your main phase, you can banish this card from your grave, send a Centur-ion card from your deck to the grave, except Wake Up Centur-ion. Okay. If only the token was a tuner. That's what I was thinking of right now. It would be really good if they made it so the token can be treated as a tuner, because that's the awkward part about Centur-ion sometimes, I feel like. The awkward part, and I noticed this when I was testing Centur-ion last format. The awkward part about the deck is that when you get stopped by a hand trap, it's very hard to find the right extenders for the deck, because you don't know what exactly you're gonna need in that situation. Because if you get stopped on Primera, you have a tuner on the board and you are looking for a non-tuner extender. If you get stopped on Trudea, you have a non-tuner on the board and you need a tuner extender, right? That is a problem, because if you, for example, that is something when I was considering Horus in Centur-ion, I was like, okay, Horus as extender is great and everything, but what if I get stopped on Trudea? If I get stopped on Trudea, having level 8 extenders that are not tuners, it doesn't do anything, right? So I think that is something they could have fixed with this card potentially, by making a Centur-ion card that can be a tuner, or it can also be a non-tuner, right? However, not the case. You only get a non-tuner extender here. You only get another non-tuner extender. The art has more in it. I'm not gonna speculate about that right now. I don't know. It might be, maybe. I'm sure it's not the last piece of Centur-ion support we get. Okay. Sending a Centur-ion card from your deck to the graveyard, I think, is also good. Because quite frankly, if we're looking at all these cards together, if you ever are incentivized to go for Gargoyle instead of Emmet, right? The fact that you can just send Emmet for free with this is still good, because Emmet is a nice resource to have in the grind game, right? You can also send Centur-ion Phalanx, which has a reborn effect when it's in the graveyard. So this sending a Centur-ion card from deck to the graveyard is a real upside on the card. You can even use both in the same turn. I think these cards are good. I think these cards are good. I don't think these cards are insane. I don't think these cards are custom cards like the Memento or the Valmonica cards. But to be honest, Centur-ion was not the kind of deck that needed custom cards to be good. Like Centur-ion is already the most powerful out of these 3 decks. So even giving it some sort of support, because I think one other thing that was kind of bad about Centur-ion was the fact that it had one line. It had exactly one line. No matter how many Centur-ion extenders you drew, if your hand was 5 Centur-ion cards or 1 Centur-ion card, your end board was the freaking same, right? It was the same end board no matter what you drew. This can change this, right? This can now make it so, hey, if I have Primera plus the field spell, maybe I can look into some more extended combos, right? But on another note, in order to make people actually play Centur-ion in a balanced way, trying to shoot for other combos, you'd have to ban Calamity. They would have to ban Calamity in the TCG, which I hope they will. I hope they will do that, because there's one, like, I actually think Centur-ions are super, super cool. I love the Centur-ion design. I I just hate that it just turns into Calamity Turbo every time, right? And so I'm hoping they ban Calamity, because then these cards are interesting. Then you actually have to think about, okay, what are interesting lines I can do with those cards, all that kind of stuff. And then it becomes a cool deck. Whether it's good enough without Calamity remains to be seen then, if they do it, right? That's something we're gonna have to wait and see. But I hope that's something they do, because that would make the deck so much more interesting as well, and so much more interactive. But even regardless of that, the level 12 Synchro is very, very strong because of Prosperity synergies. I think that's phenomenal. I think that card is going to be good no matter what. We have the new rank 8 translated real quick, so let's look at that. You see, we have Legacy of Destruction, Super Dragon of the Final Commandment, Valdris. 2+ level 10s, generic level 10. You can only use the first, second, and third effect of this card's name, of cards with this card's name once per turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, detach one material from this card, negate that activation, then you can detach one more to destroy one card on the field. When this card with material attacks, at the end of the damage step, destroy one card on the field. If this Xyz summon card is destroyed, you can destroy one card on the field. I mean, that's very strong. Yeah, that's very strong. That's freaking Omni Negate for 2 level 10s now. The first effect is somewhat interesting. I mean, it still is an Omni Negate, so there's a cap to how interesting it can be. But it's like, it's just a negate if you detach one, and then if you detach one more, you can even destroy a different card on the field, which is honestly better sometimes, because let's say your opponent activates a spell card, like a normal spell. You don't care if you're destroying that with your negate. You just go effect to negate, and then detach one more to destroy a different card on the field. Like, that's actually better in some ways. Of course, if you use a double detach, you don't have the second effect, but it's an attack effect, so I'm gonna be honest with you, that one doesn't matter. And then even if your opponent gets rid of it, you get to pop another card. That's very, very strong. This dude is very powerful. Now, of course, having 2 level 10s is like not as simple. I can't think of that many decks that can do it, but it's still an interesting card. Isn't it almost always better than just a Baron? I mean, it is better than Baron. Yeah, it's a better card than Baron, but I think it's also harder to summon than Baron, to put it into perspective. Not for every deck, of course, but yeah. Tistina, dude, it's not, I mean, this is not gonna make Tistina better. I mean, it's gonna make it better, but it's not gonna make it good. Is what I'm trying to say. But like, yeah, but it's a good card. It's a good card. Definitely, it's definitely a strong card for any deck that can use it.